Hiya, welcome to Darren in the studio. Thanks for swinging by for another video this week. First of all, before we go any further, I wanted to thank everybody for their likes, subscriptions and comments on the videos. If you want to comment on any of my videos, do so at the bottom. I always try my very best to read all of them and comment on them as well. Also, like, subscribe, do make sure that you get a thumbs up on the videos, because it does help us to move forward with all the videos that we do here in the studio. This week, I need to start this video by saying good evening, because that's how our subject this week would always introduce his BBC radio programme Letter from America. I'm talking about Alistair Cooke. Now, Alistair Cooke is one of my favourite broadcasters, and usually here in the studio we talk about music on vinyl, CD, cassette, whatever it is. But you know, stuff did come out on vinyl and on CD and on cassette that wasn't music. We're talking about spoken word. Of course, Alistair Cooke, like I say, was very famous for his Letter from America, which he started back in the 40s for the BBC and didn't stop until a month before he passed away in 2007. An absolute giant, not only within the BBC, but across the world. He did all sorts of things for other broadcast outlets across the world, like in America, I think it was for ABC in America, he did a program called Masterpiece Theatre, which was something that he introduced for many years over in the States. But let's concentrate on stuff that I have here in my collection. Like I said, he's been an influence on my life, and I've learnt an awful lot, not just about America, but of life really, through Alistair Cooke's work. The first thing that I want to show you that I have in my personal collection is one of the earliest things that has been issued that Alistair did. Back in 1938 and 39, he did something for the UK, broadcast from America to England. He did a series of jazz broadcasts where he got the biggest jazz performers of the time to perform, and they broadcasted it live from America to the UK and broadcasted it on UK radio, which at the time, you can imagine back in 1939, would have been an absolute technical nightmare. Today, of course, we can do stuff like that at the drop of a hat, but back then that would have been a real challenge. You can see all the legendary jazzmen that are featured on there. This particular CD, I think, is from about 2005. I can't read that, it's too small. 2000 and I think it's 2005, I'm sure it is. 2006, I'm always a year out, aren't I? It's got a lot of the pictures there of the broadcasts. As far as I'm aware, these are the only surviving broadcasts that made it. Alistair Cooke's Jazz Letter from America. I'm not sure what they were originally called. I think they were called Alistair Cooke's Jazz Tour or something like that back in the day. Released in 2006 on CD for the first time, from 1938 and 39. American broadcasts of Alistair Cooke. Next up, I'm going to show you the very first album that came out of Alistair Cooke, which is an original. This is an album that Columbia Records commissioned Alistair Cooke to do. This is called An Evening with Alistair Cooke, and it's basically Alistair sitting at the piano, because he was a half-decent pianist, sitting at the piano, talking about his love of jazz music, singing some songs, talking about his life along the way as well. This is from 1955. This is an original Columbia 1955 album. And the thing I love about this album, I'll show you the label first. It's on the nice blue Columbia label. What I really love about it is inside it gives you this extra, this was the original inner sleeve which I swapped out, which is on really hard card, as thick as an album cover, if not thicker. And then on this side It's got all the releases that are available on the label. Then on the other side, it's got taking care of your gramophone records, which is kind of quirky to look through. Like I say, this is the very original 1955 Alistair Cooke, An Evening with Alistair Cooke at the Piano. Then in 1977, CBS reissued it in stereo. This is the stereo version. The original was in mono. This is the stereo version. I think the back is the same as the original, but of course the front's been rejigged. The original and the reissue of An Evening with Alistair Cooke. This little portrait here of Alistair, you can see that. This portrait here of Alistair was actually drawn by Alistair Cooke himself, and there he is, the great man. An Evening with Alistair Cooke. And in 1977, of course, Alistair Cooke was doing his Letter from America on the BBC. So the BBC decided to get Alistair to talk about America for a record that was going to be issued to schools. And this is it. This is called The USA, 2 talks on the United States of America by Alistair Cooke from BBC Schools broadcasts. Side 1 basically talks about America in general. Then on side 2, he talks about the South of America more specifically. And like I said, this was issued to BBC schools, this was issued to UK schools via the BBC, and it's on the nice original BBC Study Records label. Then later on, a few years later, these broadcasts were made into an album with some extra material of Alistair's. That extra material was first put out on this album. This is Alistair Cooke's Talk About America, where he just selects some of his favourite letters from America that he's, the broadcasts that he's done, and they were featured on this LP. On this LP, you've got Alcatraz, The New Californian, The Non-Assassination of John F. Kennedy, A Tiny Claim to Fame, and A Ruined Woman. Those are the letters from America that were recorded for this album. So what the BBC decided to do, they decided to amalgamate this album, or these recordings, and these recordings into one double album, which came out in 1974, I think. I'll be a year out, I know I will. No, I'm right, 1974. This is called Talk About America by Alistair Cooke. Double album, really nice sort of vinyl package. Nice picture on the inside. And of course, double album. And on side 1, you get... Got to work my arms out now. Side 1, you get this album. And on side 2, sorry, disc 2. Disc 1 was that album. Disc 2, it's this one. Both those albums put together in one really nice package. Through the BBC. This is on Pi Records. This is an American import. I say American import, it was imported to America and then somehow came back to the UK. The labels are, I'll show you. Nice colourful Pi label. Alistair Cooke, Letter from America, Talk About America. You can find these albums quite readily. They're not rare or anything like that, but I do like to keep them because I often listen back to them. And because with Alistair Cooke, he tended to pick a subject, go right round the houses, and then end up back on the subject that he was originally talking about in a very masterful kind of way. Now, in 19... 1973, Alistair Cooke did a series of 13 programs which were called Alistair Cooke's America, and it was his personal view on how America came to be and how he saw America, because he'd basically emigrated from the UK as a child. When he went to college, he emigrated to the States and became an American citizen. This is the DVD which was issued, I think, in the late 90s, of all 13 episodes of Alistair Cooke's America. This program was so widely loved in the States when it was aired that the president at the time ordered that copies of the film were to be issued to all schools and colleges throughout America, because they loved it so much. Alistair Cooke's America on DVD, a groundbreaking series of TV programs. This was also made into a book, which became one of the best-selling books of all time. Alistair Cooke's America on DVD. If you ever get a chance to see this, you'll find these lots and lots of these in sort of charity shops and things like that, and online. I bought this as a new release officially, and I love it so much. It's great. If you want to learn a little bit about America, then that's the thing to go for. And like I said before, he was very famous in America on television anyway, because he'd been doing the Masterpiece Theatre programs over there for many, many years. And in 1973, he was also commissioned by EMI Records to make this. This is called A Voice to Remember. EMI presents A Voice to Remember, the sounds of 75 years on EMI Records, 1898 to 1973. Those of you who've watched my other YouTube videos will know I've shown this before. I've got a couple of copies of this. This is basically Alistair going through how EMI Records was formed and how other record labels were originally formed. And inside you get 2 discs, but also you get this fabulous booklet which has all the pictures of some of the original gramophones and stuff like that, and how some of the how they were recorded. You can see there at the top that guy recording at the piano there with just the horns, and basically they would record and the horn would pick up the sound and cut the master disc. But in the early days of making records, if they wanted 10 discs, they had to cut, and the band would have to perform 10 times. And there you are, there's a sort of a sound where you could listen, go and listen to records. Fabulous book this. If you ever see a copy of this album, then do get yourself one of these, because it's a fabulous, it's also a really good educational tool, and it's got lots and lots of things from the very first recordings that were ever made. Hotel Cecil Orchestra back in 1898, right up to 1973, with people like Pink Floyd, and bands like T-Rex are mentioned on here, the Beatles are mentioned, other bands as well along the way. If you ever get a chance, pick this up. Of course, Alistair Cooke, like I said before, was very, very famous for his Letters from America. Here's a international bestseller. This is obviously a reprinted version. Letters from America by Alistair Cooke in printed form. There's that illustration that he did of himself. I'm sure this was probably published after Alistair died, but it's got some great pictures in here of Alistair when he's out and about doing his usual thing. And he was friends with all the stars and some presidents along the way. Book of Alistair Cooke that I've got. And we, of course, like I say, Alistair Cooke was massively famous for his letters from America, and the BBC released a lot of his work on CD and cassettes. This is Letter from America Volume 1, which is 1946 to 1968, sorry. Volume 2 is the middle years, the 70s. These are all double disc packages. Volume 3, the final years, 1982 to 2003. Like I said before, Alistair Cooke stopped doing his letters from America a month before he passed away in March of 2004. And then this one, this is Alistair Cooke at the BBC, highlights from the BBC archives. This also features a BBC Radio 4 broadcast of a tribute to Alistair Cooke that they did when he passed away. Also, Nicky Clark was a BBC journalist. Sadly, Nicky's no longer with us as well, but he also did, not only was he a BBC journalist, Nick Clark, but he was a massive Alistair Cooke fan, and he produced the biography of Alistair Cooke. This is the 4 cassette recording of it, spoken by Nick Clark. Nick spent many hours with Alistair himself to produce this work. Fascinating person, Alistair Cooke, a real, like I said before, a real giant within broadcasting. And if you ever get a chance to check some of his work out, then do so. A lot of his stuff is now available on BBC Sounds, and you can just click, you can just write in Alistair Cooke and click on any sort of number of letters from America that he did in the past. That's it. That's a quick look at my Alistair Cooke collection. We'll do another video for you very soon. Don't forget to like the video, that really helps the channel out. Do subscribe so you don't miss any other videos. Hit the bell for notification, and of course leave your views and your comments. We love listening, we love reading all your comments, and we do our very best to reply to them. So until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you for a new video very soon. But just like Alistair Cooke, we're going to end this video by saying good night.